Now, having just come back from the PGA Show in Orlando, it's really interesting to hear what people think they've got that's going to help improve our games. And one area that I look at in particular are things like T-pegs and the claims that are being thrown around the PGA Show with regards to T-pegs and how they can help your game and get you to hit that golf ball even further. It just is mind-boggling to me. However, today I figured that we would actually put some of these T-pegs to the test and see if what these companies are saying is actually happening when we hit them in the studio today. Now, if you're anything like me, you're going to use, well, a pretty standard T-peg. And I actually like to use just a wooden T-peg. And a lot of the time, I'm generally picking these up on the first tee before we even tee off, certainly on some of the bigger resorts. However, in the studio, I tend to like to use the castle tees because I'm teeing up into a mat and I want that consistency, certainly when I'm testing drivers and putting them through their paces. However, the first company that I came across when it came to the T-pegs was this one called Pure Shot. And the chap actually took his time to go through the particular tee with me to say that he was going to give me an extra 7 yards with my driver. And also he was going to be able to control my dispersion just a little bit more. And I was like, well, how are you going to do that? But it's all to do with the top part of this tee. And what he's saying is it's not kind of curved in as much, allowing that ball to sit up there quite nicely. And he's saying that the edges of some of these tees, these wooden tees and even castle tees that I'm using in here, are actually going to affect ball spin and also the spin axis of the golf ball, which I find amazing. I mean, I'm not one that's kind of gone round to figure out what the best tee is in the game of golf until right now. But I cannot believe that we've got ourselves into a position where a T-peg is actually going to affect what this ball actually does. I can't believe like people like the R&A or USGA haven't picked up on this and sort of said, look, you need to focus on your T-pegs. And maybe we have. Maybe it's just that I've only got to this point that's going to allow us to start to really investigate whether these T-pegs are actually affecting my ball flight and my overall distance. The next T-peg that I picked up was this Survivor T-peg. Now, the idea of this one is to, again, give us more distance, but also it's going to allow this T-peg to last longer, so it's not going to break when we're out on the golf course. However, nobody spoke to me about this. I just picked it up and wandered off with it because I thought, oh, this could do for some nice testing. Now, what they're saying is it's going to lower my ball spin rate and it's going to give me greater overall distance and maximize my ball speed. So both these T-pegs focusing very much on distance and also controlling spin rates. So what I thought we'd do today is put a wooden tee, a normal wooden tee that I would use in my golf bag, a castle tee, and then these other two tees to see what the performance is actually like. But before we look at those numbers, I just want you to pause this video, go into the comments, and you tell me, is there a T-peg that you've managed to find out there that's helping your game? And what do you think the results are going to be from the testing that I do here in the studio? Here is the slight problem. I've moved to a castle tee in the orange because I wanted to keep it in line height-wise with what I'm getting out of that wooden white one that I've been using. And then the Survivor tee, the yellow one, it came in a 2-pack. I had a blue one which was a little bit taller, and then the yellow one, which I can get now perfectly in the same height as these other two. However, the problem I've got now is that this Pure Shot one, look how tall that is. So we're going to have to call on Stanley to help us get that to the height that we need. Now, obviously, on the golf course, you wouldn't have a problem with this, but in the mat, obviously that's quite solid underneath. So I've got to get it now down to the height. So if there's any kids watching, please don't try this at home, all right? But I'm just going to take off the top end of this T-peg just to shorten it slightly so I can get it to the size of the other two. Right, let's see how we get on. So white one in, orange in, Survivor in, Same height, and now a little bit off the end of the blue one. Perfect. We're now in the perfect line. Well, the findings are in, and I'm popping them over there for you, but this is actually really quite interesting. You know, this is the first time that I've really done a test when it comes to different styles of tees. Now, I've done different tee heights, and I've shown the progression of that and how you can improve distance or improve control with different strike locations on the club face with different heights of tees. However, this is fascinating. Wooden tee down the bottom, 150 mile an hour off the face. The Castle tee a little bit quicker at 152. However, the Survivor, which actually this particular tee says that it should improve ball speed off the club face, it has 154.7, 155 pretty much is the number that I'm getting with that particular one. And then again, some increases in that ball speed with that Pure Shot at 153, nearly 154. So those particular tees that I've picked up from the PGA Show are definitely giving me more ball speed off the club face. However, when it comes to spin numbers, this is actually another interesting one. So 1900 spin that I'm getting out of the wooden tee, about exactly the same what I'm getting out of the Castle tee. Then the other two tees, which again show that they're going to reduce the spin numbers, and they're basically telling me this. Well, they have 1759 revs out of the Survivor and 1745 revs out of the Pure Shot. Now, for me personally, that's probably a little bit too low, but I am using the Triple Diamond Callaway driver, which is a low spinning driver. But then look at the yardages. 266 out of the wooden tee, 267, these are average carries out of the Castle tee. And then we see the jump up, 273 and 275. So it's really quite interesting to see that that Pure Shot tee is what's getting me out there the furthest at 275 yards in the air. And then that Survivor coming in at 273, that's second best. This is a really interesting test. Now, I have also looked at that kind of spin axis on the golf ball, and this is really hard to sort of see, and you'd probably have to take this out onto the golf course. But if I do look at, let's say, the spin axis on the ball, you can see there as I kind of jump across to the different positions there, on just a few of these different shots, I'm definitely seeing a big axis of movement on the Castle tee, let's say, compared to maybe the Survivor tee. But to be honest with you, there's not a great deal of difference. But what I would say, looking at these numbers, what they've told me at the show or what they're telling me on their websites, I'm kind of seeing from the numbers. Well, that was a fascinating test, I've got to say. I wasn't expecting to see any differences whatsoever. And you could see there that I was working really hard to make sure that the strike location was pretty consistent across the face and up and down the face with the way I was hitting that driver. 3 shots with each of these tees, and I'm definitely seeing a big jump when it comes to, well, when I say a big jump, a few yards jump, but also a massive difference in spin. 200 less revs that I'm seeing from these 2 particular tees that I've picked up from the show, compared to what I'm seeing out of my wooden tee and then my Castle tee that I would use, let's say, in the studio. So it is interesting to see what the differences are with these particular ones. What I would say though, is if we look at these TTs, if we're talking about sustainability, things like that, plastic, not sure that that's the way forward. Wooden tees for me always work a little bit better. But what I also would say is, when I use these Castle tees, we do break them an awful lot. They're pretty flimsy nowadays, which makes you get out there and buy maybe a few more tees, and then obviously wooden tees, we wear them out really quickly. But that was an interesting test. I'd like to hear down in the comments, are you gonna be looking at tees for this season that might, just might, help with your game? Big thank you to these guys for setting me up with their tees. And yeah, more research probably needs to be done, but first impressions, really impressed.